Thursday night against the Steelers is a must-win for the Cincinnati Bengals. Can Joe Flacco save their season? Of course not. That and more on today's edition of Locked On NFL.
The new Locked On NFL. The madman Tyler Rowland is your double shot of NFL espresso with the Locked On local experts on every major story. Get ready. Rowland is revving up. The new Locked On NFL starts now. Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Football fans, welcome into the Locked On NFL podcast, bringing you a double dose of the NFL's biggest stories with help from our local experts that know your favorite teams like no one else. I am your host, the madman, Tyler Rowland, joined today by Locked On NFL expert, the data queen, Michelle Majuk. On today's episode, we're going to look at some of the best games of the weekend. The NFC East could get very spicy after week 7. Also, we got some true tester games for the Colts, for the Buccaneers this week. But we got to start with a Thursday night football matchup that has the Cincinnati Bengals season hanging in the balance. Before we dive in, do want to thank you for making Locked On NFL your first listen. Also, want to remind you that you can follow our show and hear new episodes ad-free daily on Amazon Music, so go check that out. And thank you for being an everydayer here with us at the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. Today's Crossover Thursday at the Locked On Podcast Network. Check out your favorite team show, but Crossover Thursday is presented by Prize Picks. Download the Prize Picks app today. Use the code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Michelle, we got the 4-1 Pittsburgh Steelers. We got the 2-4 Cincinnati Bengals. And the Bengals started out 2-0. They've lost a bunch of games in a row. And if they want to have any chance whatsoever of saving this season, quote unquote, to allow Joe Burrow to come back at the end of the year, which I also don't think is going to happen, they got to win this game against the Steelers at home.
Well, they do. I just don't know if they have the talent to do it, right? Because coming into the season, we were saying Joe Burrow is going to have to play at an MVP level to cover for this terrible defense that we expected, and they're performing exactly like we expected, allowing over 30 points per game this season. So even Joe Burrow was going to have to play at this MVP level, but we knew he was capable of doing that. So when you go from Joe Burrow to either Jake Browning or now Joe Flacco, like expecting them to somehow save your season when you needed Joe Burrow to play at his tippy-top best, like it's just really, it's not going to happen. I'm sorry to Bengals fans.
Yeah, I feel the same way. It's not going to happen. But, hey, that's not going to stop Bengals fans from having some optimism, because after the performance Joe Flacco put out there this weekend against the Packers, they feel like they got a real NFL quarterback, as our guys from Locked On Bengals seem to think.
But my main takeaway from tonight is they have a real quarterback. They have a real guy. Now, that doesn't mean they have a superstar guy or Pro Bowl guy or whatever you would want to say Joe Burrow is. But he's not a backup guy. And that matters. That matters a lot when your offense is, and really your team is built around your offense. Like if the Bengals are going to be good, if they're going to be good at any point this year, it's going to be because the offense is a big reason why.
And I get that at this point in time, there has to be some semblance of optimism. Trust me, with the team that I cover on a daily basis, I understand trying to manufacture some optimism here in a bleak situation, but like, I'm with you. Joe Flacco isn't a real NFL quarterback anymore. He needs to retire. It is over. Joe Flacco isn't leading any team to success going forward. He can't move. He's turnover prone. The Bengals O-line isn't good. Like, you can survive with Joe Burrow and two incredible wide receivers with a bad O-line and a bad defense, like, because they can lift you up. But you can't do that with Joe Flacco. I'm sorry, Bengals fans. Your season is over, and it was over the moment that Joe Burrow got hurt, and he's not coming back this year. Like, why do we got to pretend like that's even possible? It's not happening.
If they can pull out some wins, maybe he will, but it's going to be hard for them to get any wins here. Now, divisional games can always get wonky, right? You never know. They could pull out this win, but at the same time, with Joe Flacco, them calling him a real quarterback, I get it. He didn't turn over the ball this week, right? And they're used to Jake Browning throwing so many interceptions, but
right.
The Packers do have a good defense. The one thing they have not been able to do this year is get defensive takeaways. They have 2 defensive takeaways this season on the season. It's the second fewest behind only the Jets. So it's not like the Packers have been coming through with interceptions this year at all. I would expect Joe Flacco to turn over the ball at least once or twice in this matchup against the Steelers with the pressure he's going to see from TJ Watt and this defensive line. And the Steelers seem to have a better game plan for Aaron Rodgers as well, with just like getting the ball out of his hands quickly, letting them do it all after the catch. And the Bengals can't tackle. So I don't know what they're going to do about that.
And I got to say, something that I might have to take the L on is the Jalen Ramsey trade, because Ramsey has made an impact for the Steelers. Minkah Fitzpatrick hasn't really done much for the Dolphins, but that's the Dolphins. I can't really blame Minkah Fitzpatrick for that. But the trade looks like it wasn't a terrible decision like I thought when it immediately happened. And Ramsey's dealt with some injuries, but he toughed it out last week and made something happen when the Steelers played recently. And my guy Chris Carter from Locked On Steelers talked about that.
Players said like the appreciation for Jalen Ramsey to fight his way back to play this week, where he suffered that hamstring injury 2 weeks ago. And as we know, hamstring injuries can be very tricky. They can be difficult to manage, but he got right to his rehab, worked his butt off, and made it so that he was ready to go for this game. And they had him on a pitch count. They were pulling him out to make sure that he didn't overextend himself. He was ready to go. He was pushing it, and he was out there making plays. Finished the game with 6 tackles, 2 of those being sacks. Big time stuff from him.
The way that they're using him, he is a more impactful player than what they were doing with Fitzpatrick, just having him basically play center field in the back end. And that's why I continue to believe in the Steelers. I do. I think that the formula, that they've been able to run the ball a little bit better recently too, which I think is important, but that defense is kind of rounding into shape after a tough start to the year. I just trust superstar players who have consistently throughout their year made big plays, and with TJ Watt and Jalen Ramsey in the secondary, I just think the Steelers have the playmakers that they need to continue this role, continue win, and I think at this point they're a shoo-in to win the AFC North.
Yeah, I don't want to say that yet, because as soon as Lamar Jackson comes back, I could see the Ravens going on a 10-win, streak here. So I'm a Steelers fan. I've just seen this team fall apart too often, especially as soon as they get even close to the playoffs. So I don't know. We'll see. It feels a lot like the same old Steelers, where it's like, okay, their defense is coming through, making big plays. Their offense is fine. It does look better than it has the last couple of years. Rodgers is still Rodgers, though. He's aging, and if this line can't protect him, then he's, it's terrible. But you're right on the run game. Like Jalen Warren and Kenneth Gainwell, they are they're working hard out there, and they're looking really good. And then on the opposite side for the Bengals, they just have no run game, right?
None.
So it's not even that they don't have a quarterback right now. They don't even have a running back to lean on or an offensive line to lean on for that run game. So they really have nothing going for them besides Mark Chase and T. Higgins.
And when the Steelers start to tee off in the pass rush and get after Joe Flacco, I think things could get pretty spooky for the Bengals. Right now, the line on FanDuel is 5.5 points. 5.5 point home underdog. I feel like with it being a division game, it might sway me to the Bengals, but God, I have such a hard time doing that. I'd probably have to lean to the Steelers.
Yeah, the Bengals have I think a negative 80 point differential this year.
Worst in the NFL.
I'm going to take the 5.5 points. Yeah.
This won't be in the Madman's moneymaker. Like, I don't feel confident enough to throw this in to that. But, yeah, if I had to choose on the game, I would go minus 5.5 with the Steelers. But with that being said, there are some great games in Week 7. And I think there's some true testers here. Are the Colts for real? Can the Bucs keep this going? A lot to discuss on today's edition of Locked On NFL. Today's episode is brought to you by Mint Mobile. If you're still overpaying for wireless, it's time to say yes to saying no. At Mint Mobile, their favorite word is no. No contracts, no monthly bills, no overages, no hidden fees, no BS. I said yes to making the switch and getting premium wireless for just $15 a month. Mint makes it simple. All plans come with high-speed data and unlimited talk and text delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. You can even bring your own phone and keep your same number in contacts. Mint Mobile gives you quality service that you had before, but at the fraction of a price. The setup is super easy. You can keep your number again, and they'll have you up and running in minutes. Ready to say yes to saying no? Make the switch at mintmobile.com/LockedOnNFL. That's mintmobile.com/LockedOnNFL. Upfront payment of $45 required, equivalent to $15 a month. Limited time new customer offer for the first 3 months only. Speeds may slow above 35 gigabytes on unlimited plan. Taxes and fees extra. See Mint Mobile for details. Today's episode is also brought to you by Built. Nobody likes paying rent, but if you must, you might as well get something for it. That's where Built comes in. B-I-L-T. Built is changing the game by turning your rent payment into real rewards you can actually use. When you pay rent through Built, you earn flexible points that can be redeemed towards hundreds of hotels and airlines, a future rent payment, your next Lyft ride, and more. But Built isn't just about rent. It's about rewarding you around your entire neighborhood. I love Built because your rent finally works for you. You're earning points every month on something that you already had to pay. Built has made everyday life feel more rewarding, from your neighborhood to your travel plans. Turn your rent into rewards and start earning points around your neighborhood by going to joinbuilt.com/LockedOnNFL. That's joinbilt.com/LockedOnNFL. Make sure that you use that link so they know that we sent you. All right, Michelle, let's continue today's edition of Locked On NFL. Now that we got that questionable Thursday night football game out of the way, let's get into some of the best games of the weekend. And we got a true tester here, in my opinion, for both teams in the NFC. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers take on the Detroit Lions. The Lions are coming off a pretty substantial loss to the Kansas City Chiefs. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers are still just as injured as they've always been. They might be getting Mike Evans back this week, but they probably won't have Emeka Egbuka in this game. The injuries just keep on coming. Can Tampa Bay keep it rolling with all the injuries? I think they can, because they can win any given Sunday, like my guy James Yarko from Locked On Bucks talked about last week.
For the Tampa Bay Buccaneers so far, it's been any given Sunday. James Yarko here, host of Locked On Bucks. And when it comes to placing this Buccaneers team into a tier, this is the one that makes the most sense. Although, shout out to the injury report or CVS receipt tier, because they could easily fit there. This is a team that has lost Kalijah Kancey and Cody Mauch for the season. Mike Evans and Bucky Irving missing multiple games, without two of their top corners, without their starting right tackle, but they keep finding ways to win. Baker Mayfield is now in the national conversation for NFL MVP, and all 5 of their games have come down to the final minute. This is a team that feels kind of special, as we saw against the Eagles. No lead is safe when Baker is under center and you have rookie sensation Emeka Egbuka dominating through the first 5 weeks. It doesn't matter who the opponent is. It doesn't matter if they're trailing in the fourth quarter. This team finds a way to win even without key players on both sides of the ball. But at some point, they'll get Mike and Bucky back. They'll get Luke Gedeke and Jamel Dean and Benjamin Morrison back. Then Jalen McMillan's going to come off of injured reserve. And once they're back to full strength, you could very well see them skyrocket into the locked and loaded tier.
I agree that once they get healthy, I really do believe in the Bucs, but I think this week is a week where they actually do take another loss. The Lions at home, they're the type of team that finds a way to win always, and I think coming off that loss to the Kansas City Chiefs, I think the Lions find a way to win this one.
Yeah, and the Lions, both of their losses this year were tough matchups on the road. At home,
Yes.
With all these injuries to the Buccaneers, and yeah, the Lions are dealing with some injuries in their secondary, but their offense, like, who's going to stop this offense when it's in Detroit for the Buccaneers, who are struggling? I love Baker Mayfield. I love him so
Yes.
much. I'm totally on the bandwagon of him being like an MVP candidate. And if he can somehow pull out this win this week without any of his top options, then just hand it to him already, right? But I do think the Lions just have too many weapons for the Buccaneers to stop. So the Lions are going to put up 30 to 40 points at home. And I just don't think that the Buccaneers can do that if they don't have Mike Evans, if they don't have Egbuka, if they don't have Chris Godwin, if they don't have Bucky Irving. Like, that's just too much to overcome. So I don't think this game should tell you all too much about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, because like you said, once they get healthy, that's going to be a completely different story. And if they were at full health, I would be giving them a real strong chance to win this game.
Yeah, I'd give them a much better chance if they had more of their weapons, because the Lions, like you said, they're going to have their weapons. But one person they are going to be missing is Brian Branch, who was suspended. And my guy Matt Derry from Locked On Lions was pretty harsh about what Branch did after the game.
First of all, Brian Branch, classless and stupid move. Just brutal. What are you doing, dude? You lost the game. Walk off the field. After the game, Dan Campbell quotes on Branch. Quote, I love Brian Branch, but what he did was inexcusable. It's not going to be accepted here. It's not what we do. I know it's not what we're about. I apologize to Coach Reed and to the Chiefs and to Schuster. That's not okay.
And that's the one place where the Bucs could potentially take advantage. Like you said, there's some injuries in the secondary. Branch isn't going to be there for this game. He is appealing, but I don't know whether that's going to work out for him. You know what I mean? Like, it was pretty clear what happened on the field. But I'm with you. I love the Bucs. I love Baker this year. I started the Baker Mayfield for MVP train. You know what I mean? Like, I was on that early before the season. That was my pick officially. But I still think that the Bucs are going to have trouble bringing this one home. Now, moving to another game that is quite the tester. The Indianapolis Colts. All right, they've played incredible football so far, but now they got to take on the Los Angeles Chargers. They're going to LA to do that. The 4-2 Chargers who got back to good this week against the 5-1 Colts. And one of the biggest things that's going to matter here is the continued play of Daniel Jones, who our guys over at Locked On Colts think should be in the MVP conversation.
I think it would take Daniel Jones doing some special things in primetime games to get him up there.
Yes.
But I do want to just use this segment to say again, if you're not a believer in what Daniel Jones is doing with the Colts so far this year, I don't know what else you need to see. Again, I was as out as you can be on him coming into the year, but I've seen all I need to see to at least say this is a good starting quarterback in a great spot, and he's playing confident and comfortable with the Colts. I'm bought in on him the rest of this season, and hopefully he gets extended if he continues this play. So regardless of MVP, All-Pro, Pro Bowl talk with Daniel Jones, I think he's been playing some great football this year, and I'm excited to celebrate that, and I'm hoping it continues. If he can get the Colts into the bye week at 7-3 or 8-2, this is going to be a playoff season for the Colts, and we're going to be looking at Daniel Jones as the guy who got the Colts in the playoffs, and that's reason to celebrate.
Yeah, and arguably two of the biggest reasons why people aren't talking about Jones as much for the MVP conversation is because of Shane Steichen and Jonathan Taylor, both of whom are actually leading their odds for a couple of certain awards, and we'll talk about that in just a moment.
I'm sorry. That's insane. Like, Daniel Jones has played very well, but I think we know that this is kind of a Sam Darnold Minnesota Vikings situation where the supporting cast around him is just an incredible level, and that's helping raise his floor.
Okay, but I don't think that's completely fair to say when we've seen other quarterbacks with the same, core besides Tyler Warren not succeed here, right? And not bring this team to wins and not
bad quarterbacks, yes.
With the same head coach too, with the same play caller. With Sam Darnold, he was with Kevin O'Connell, who has made pretty much every quarterback look good. He had Justin Jefferson, the best wide receiver in the league. I mean, Michael Pittman Jr. is fine. Josh Downs is fine, but no one would be dying for that, wide receiver core. And then Jonathan Taylor has been balling out for sure this year. But the Colts have scored 100.
O-line is really where the money's made. That offensive line is murdering people.
The Colts have scored 194 points through the first 6 games. And that's the most by the Colts in a season through the first 6 games of the Super Bowl era. And they've had a lot of good quarterbacks in their time, right? And Peyton Manning and Andrew Luck and Johnny Unitas. Like, you can go back to even Errol Morrell, right? Like, and Daniel Jones leading that team to the most points the first 6 games. Like that's something there. And his numbers look great. They rarely have to punt the ball, right? Like, and they're not turning over the ball too much. I think he looks really good. I know it. Yeah, maybe I'll be fooled, but I think he looks really good.
But I did it yesterday. I'm going to keep doing it. They're last year's Vikings. Really good offensive system, good play calling, good offensive line play, reclamation project quarterback playing above his skis. They're going to get to the end of the season. Daniel Jones is going to turn into Daniel Jones again, and they're going to be like, should we extend him? I don't know. We still need a court. Like, it just seems like the destiny. But that's 2-3 months from now. For right now, I think they win this game. I think they do beat the Chargers. The Chargers are not playing great football. They found a way to come back and win that football game, and good on them. But their offensive line is super banged up, and I think that's going to help. Indy's worst trait is their pass rush, in my opinion. When they play a good offensive line, they're going to struggle there. But they're not playing a good offensive line this week. And I think we've seen the Chargers defense is super susceptible as of late. So I think the Colts are going to outscore them here. I think the Colts win this game.
Yeah, it's so weird with the Chargers. They should be better than they are, but they've been so inconsistent. And for them to even have like the opportunity to lose that game against the Dolphins last week is insane, right? For them to have to go down and get all those yards in that field goal to end the game, that's just crazy to me. Hopefully they can get Joe Alt back to help out their offensive line a little bit, Trey Pipkins as well. But yeah, I think the Colts handle this with Jonathan Taylor coming through with a huge game again.
Yeah, I'm with you there. Now, hey, you mentioned it. They went down and kicked that field goal, and our guys over at Locked On Chargers think the kicker is a weapon.
I mean, it's such a luxury to have Dicker, to have the confidence to know that when you put him on the field, he's going to put it through the uprights, and he was perfect. 4 for 4, 5 for 5 if you include the 58-yarder he absolutely just destroyed right through the uprights. It probably would have been good from 65 plus. Like, it just the dude's such a weapon.
Hey, if it comes down to a field goal, the Chargers trust their kicker more than the Colts can trust theirs after Schrader goes out for the year on IR. So that is one thing to consider if it's a close game late, but I don't know how close it's going to be. I really do think the Colts are a much better football team right now. But with that being said, a team that I'm not certain how good they are right now is the Philadelphia Eagles. And if they lose this week, things could get very spicy in the NFC East. Do want to let you guys know that today's episode is brought to you by Mazda. Mazda crafts cars for those who do more than simply move. Mazda delivers confidence with every ride with more IIHS Top Safety Pick Awards than anyone else as of August 2025. From footwork to breathwork, we know our favorite athletes sweat all the details. Mazda brings this same intention to how they craft every single model. You can feel the Japanese craftsmanship in every detail, from the metallic accents to the available Napa leather upholstery. You can make everyday drives feel like anything but. From smooth handling to intuitive controls, with all-wheel drive standard in every crossover SUV, you can drive with confidence through almost any season. Like our favorite players, we know Mazda sweats every detail, because when you make every move count, impossible becomes irrelevant. It's Mazda. Move and be moved. All right, Michelle, let's cap off today's edition of Locked On NFL. We talked about that Thursday night football matchup in the AFC North, talked about some tester games that are going to be great to watch this weekend, but now I want to talk about the NFC East, which could get very, very interesting if the Philadelphia Eagles don't find a way to win against the 3-2 Minnesota Vikings. Now, the Eagles are probably going to be favored in that game, and they should be, but the Vikings are coming off of a bye. It gives them a good opportunity to be extra ready, and with the way that the Eagles are playing right now, you can't really count on them whatsoever, and that's something that my guy, the Legacy, Louis DiBiase from Locked On Eagles, talked about.
And at 4-2, this team has to look themselves in the mirror and say, who do we want to be? Do we want to be the 2023 Eagles that collapse? Do we want to be the 2024 Eagles that figure this thing out? Right now, it's as bad as it was last year after the Tampa loss. It's that bad. This was supposed to be the easy part of your schedule, and you've dropped 2 straight games, and the schedule is not going to get easier.
It's not, and again, I think the Eagles are going to be favored in this game, but going to Minnesota when they're off a bye, Carson Wentz revenge game potentially. Like, I just see some craziness on the horizon in this one.
It will be interesting to see if the Vikings go back to JJ McCarthy, if he's ready to go, or if they just stick with Carson Wentz. And like you said, the whole revenge game comes into play too. But it's so hard with the Eagles because we've seen them get into this mode before, just a couple seasons ago. Like we just heard, like in 2023, it was like, it just felt like the team had given up and they just all hated each other. And that's where it feels like they're at again this year. It just feels something's wrong in that locker room. Something's wrong with that culture. And for them to get beat up by the Giants last week, like, AJ Brown's mad, and then Saquon Barkley's not getting used enough. Yep. And, there's just a lot of drama, especially with like Nick Sirianni. I like him as a coach, but it does seem like it's a roller coaster with him as well. So I'm not going to be surprised if the Vikings come out and win this game.
Yeah, I'm not going to be shocked at all. And like you mentioned when we were planning for the show, if the Eagles were to lose this game and drop to 4-3, things get very, very interesting in the NFC East because you got the Commanders at 3-3, so they'd be tied at 4-3 at that point. The Cowboys, while being up and down, they could potentially go to 3-3 because they play the Washington Commanders. They would be 3-1 on the year. Like, I think it could be interesting. The real problem for me is the Cowboys defense is absolutely terrible. And that's something that my guy Landon McCool from Locked On Cowboys acknowledged this week.
It's humbling, in a lot of different ways to watch that defense go out on the field and see how bad they are in a variety of different areas, run defense, pass defense. And again, not just getting outperformed physically, but also just looking confused, looking like they don't know what they're supposed to be doing on a certain play. Guys getting 15 yards behind the defense, and no one really is certain who's supposed to be over there covering that guy. It's stuff like that, week in and week out, and it's not getting better. It feels like it's getting worse. That really makes you question what is exactly the plan and what can you even do about this defense. Is there even enough to be done this season to save us in this defense?
The answer is no to me. There's nothing that can be done. What they should have done is not traded Micah Parsons before the year, and then the defense would have been better. And then that defense with a higher floor combined with the offense, even without CeeDee Lamb, who could potentially be back this week, would be great. Like, the Cowboys would probably be a playoff team if they would have just kept Micah Parsons. I don't understand it. I mean, spilt milk is spilt milk at this point, but I think the Cowboys could be interesting, but I think the Commanders find a way to win this game in Dallas because I just don't trust Dallas's defense.
That's what it comes down to. I mean, Dak Prescott and the offense is thriving, right? They're averaging the most total yards per game in the league, but they're allowing the most total yards per game in the league as well. And then the second most points per game at 30.7 points per game. No team has ever made the playoffs when allowing 30 or more points per game in a season. And there's only been 2 teams that made the playoffs after allowing 27 plus points per game in a season. That was the 2000 Rams and the 2020 Titans. So I just it stinks to watch Dak Prescott play at such a high level and George Pickens go off, but their defense just literally cannot stop anyone. And the Commanders desperately need to win this game, right? Like, they just lost when they should have never lost because of the fumble late in the game against the Bears. They get the Chiefs after this, and then the Seahawks, and then the Lions. Like, they need this win. Yeah, they need this win. So I'm going to go with the Commanders.
Yeah, I'm going to go with the Commanders on this one too. But again, the Cowboys find a way to win it. Like, you just can't count them out with the talent that they have on offense, especially if they get CeeDee Lamb back pretty soon. But with that being said, that is going to do it for today's edition of Locked On NFL. I am the host, the madman, Tyler Rowland, for my co-host, the Data Queen, Michelle Majuk, as we tell you every single episode. Thanks for tuning in. Stay safe out there.
Bye, y'all.